strategic move that Eddie is making for AJ? Why are you not thinking, let's get him set up for
kind of animal? If that was years and years and years ago. Like, Clarissa is a way different fighter from when she was back in.
Thanks to those joining me live, and to those that be joining me on our
defenses that she's had to have recently. You know, she's pulled people.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable about tribalism. I don't think tribalism is necessarily bad. I just don't think it has to be.
I don't know what he think he sees or what he think he know. But he going to the hospital, bro. Like, bro, you not winning that fight.
You guys mentioned, I think, D-Style, you mentioned him versus Regis program. I'd love, that sounds like a...
Old, I don't need you, you know, and PBC and others, in my opinion, it's like, oh, this is my guy. Like, there's a relationship.
Flat out, it's tough, and we call box, and we go to the end of the round, and then...
That would say, what do you mean by acting black? That's a fair question, but a participant of Trash Talk knows.
And they're announcing a fight 3-4 months from now, and he ain't gonna fight. I bet you anything, he's not gonna fight somebody as good as John Ryder.
What's going on, everybody? Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Roundtable. We have a packed house tonight. As always, we have D-Style Boxing joining me, partner in crime. We got the lovely and beautiful In the Ring with Christine is back after a long hiatus. Great to have her back. And we have Lukey Boxing, my other right-hand man here. We got the legendary Lee Groves from Ring Magazine. And we have UK's finest, Base the Kid. All right, let's jump right in. Big fight this past weekend. Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. A lot of questions were asked before this fight, and some were answered, but there's still more questions lingering. And the big question here is, did Jake Paul prove after this fight that he's a real boxer? We're going to start with you, Mr. D-Style. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, everyone needs to, because even when Jake Paul was getting, like, I've never been a fan of Jake Paul as a boxer, but I think he represented everything that's wrong with boxing, quite frankly, just on steroids, right? Everything I heard over the years, oh, he don't got to fight him. He's not a big name. It's all about how big of a draw you are, but this was on steroids, right? But every time someone said, oh, he hasn't fought a real boxer, like, well, what's a real boxer? Like, is it someone who just gets a boxing license? Is it someone who is ranked? Is it somebody who is in the top 50? Is it like, I don't know, that's ever been defined, but did he show that he has like a legitimate future in boxing, that he could be a future world champion, that he can? Last year we did a roundtable, and Lukey was actually on it, and of course you, Joe, right? And I was asked, by next year, in 2 years, can he beat Macaboo? And I laughed, and I said, well, he's going to have to show a lot of improvement from now till then for me to really consider that, in all honesty. But Jake Paul did not show that he is a future world champion. He's not like this prodigy or something, like, you know, he's not this prodigal son. He's not like, he doesn't have this natural talent that he could make up for the fact that he didn't grow up boxing, that he didn't go through an amateur program, that he didn't have the proper tools, sharpened before he started, boxing, for example. He just can't make up for all that, right? Yes, we have the Winky Wrights that started at 18 and he became a world champion, but again, that's Winky Wright, and that was at 18, right? Yes, we have boxers like Bernard Hopkins that came out of prison and did the unthinkable and then ended up becoming a world champion at the age of 30. But again, that's Bernard Hopkins. Like, he's not there. That's not him, right? So for me, I think I respect the fact that he gets in the ring. Obviously, it takes a lot of courage to step inside a ring and fight. So I do respect that aspect of it. But do I believe he's some future world champion that's going to be challenging Canelo? We had people that thought he was going to challenge Canelo in 2-3 years. Oh, 2-3 years he'll be ready. Are you shitting me right now? No, that's not him. And it's actually okay if he's never going to be at that level, right? A little too late, took a boxing too late. What could have been if he took a boxing 10 years ago, who knows, right? But he did it, right? So to me, he is what he is. He's like this side attraction. He's an 8-round novice who got beat by another 8-round novice. That's what I saw. Like I seen better fighters on mid cards of Friday night fights back in the day, right? That's just me being honest. That's not me throwing shade, right? I see better fighters, just random 6-rounders on Matchroom undercards all the time than these two guys. So this isn't a shade at them, but if by real we mean like the real deal, like a top dude that's going to be a contender in the future, no, he didn't show me that's what he is.
Would you pay for the rematch?
No.
No. All right, Christine, what are your thoughts on one of your favorite fighters in the sport today, Jake Paul? Paul.
And by the way, sorry, I'm having flash flood warnings, so like my internet is like crazy. But you know what? I am like D-Style. I respect the fact that he got in the ring because it takes a lot to get in there. I know I've talked to other trainers that are now convinced that he is a real boxer and he will be a real boxer. I've seen him in the gym. He's working out. That's fabulous. But I'm not impressed. Like, he's not going to get there. I mean, first of all, Fury is not the best. Yes, he's a real fighter, if you want to say real fighter. But Jake Paul proved even further why he doesn't belong in there. I mean, he was wild. He was getting hit in the back of the head because he was turning. I mean, there were so many things, so many flaws. It was just almost painful to watch. I respect him if all the money that he's making, all the publicity that he's getting, he uses that to uplift and help real boxers or people that have gone through the program, the amateur program, that have proven themselves, that have gone through years of this, beating, of training, of beating people up. But honestly, I can't bear to see another Jake Paul fight. I just really can't.
Okay. Base, what were your thoughts on Jake Paul? Can we call him now a real fighter?
We could have called him a real fighter from he got his professional boxing license. I can't lie, I'm actually stunned at what I'm hearing. Look, let's be real, right? Is he ever going to be a world champion? No. But what the weekend showed me more than anything else is, if you actually think about it, it was more of a damning indictment on Tommy Fury that he struggled as bad as he did with Jake Paul than it was that Jake Paul ended up getting beat by him. Let's be real. Tommy Fury, who supposedly has been boxing since the age of 6 years old, and he's 23 now, 16 to 17 years, give or take. Jake Paul had his first, what would you call it, white collar fight in 2018. So if they were that close to each other after just 4 years of training, then his trajectory, his actual ceiling is a lot higher than what people would think if he decided to take it seriously. Now, do I ever think he's going to be a world champion? No. But is he a real boxer? As I said, when he got that pro license, he's a real boxer. And people just obviously have to respect that as, as an art and as a form. Was he fighting other professional boxers? No, not particularly. Although, again, we say that the people he was fighting had pro boxing licenses. So we can't just move the goalposts to change narratives when it suits us and our agendas and our dislikes of people. Ultimately, he came up a bit short. Tommy Fury won the fight. He did win it. I said he would win prior to the fight, but the fact he made it as difficult as it was, to me, as I said, is more of a damning indictment on him than it is on actually Jake Paul. And if they had a rematch, I would actually pick Jake to beat him, because if that's the difference in level after just 4 and a bit years of training to 17 years of training, only one of them's got a ceiling that's going to rise a lot higher than the other, and it has to be, in at this point in time, it's going to be the guy with all the money to hire the best pro trainers and the best nutritionists, the best S&C coaches or whatnot. And clearly, from every fight he's had, there has been some form of progression and improvement. We've seen it. Even this one, there was a level of improvement. Obviously, it was the biggest fight for both of them. So yeah, they did certain things that weren't correct. There was the issue with the referee, which no one really wants to address, but that was just a bit of a shit show in itself. But outside of that, it was what it was. If you're gonna ask me, would I pay for the rematch? Well, I didn't pay for the first one, so
Whoa.
but either way, I would watch it somehow if I wanted to.
Yeah, to be fair, base, I had it 5 rounds to 3, and obviously those point deductions kind of screwed up the scorecards. But
I had the same. I had
yeah,
it 5. I had it 3 rounds to 5. If you want to be technical, A side, B side. I had it 75-76.
yeah, I had Tommy winning by a point.
Yeah, same.
So in fairness, it was a close fight, in accordance to the 10-point must system, in my opinion. But Lee, you're a purist, so I'd love to hear your opinion on this. What are your thoughts on this fight? What are your thoughts on Tommy Fury and Jake Paul? And do you think there should be a rematch?
Well, as far as the fight is concerned, as long as you watched it for what it was, a fight between two relatively novice boxers, it was somewhat entertaining. They put a lot of energy into it. But was it a high quality boxing match for the level that it was, as Sean Porter said? No, it probably not. I tweeted some advice for those viewers who were drawn to boxing because of Jake Paul. And I advised them, if watch some video of Joe Louis or Sugar Ray Robinson or the Four Kings or Salvador Sanchez to get an idea of what real high-level boxing looks like. And as far as great fights are concerned, watch the fourth fight between Bobby Chacon and Bazooka Limon, the greatest fight that I have ever seen and the greatest fight that I will ever see. They would do themselves a favor to watch that one. If they want to see real action, that's the fight to watch. Is Jake Paul a real fighter? That's the question here. And I think the reason why we're even asking this question is because Paul himself raised the bar of expectations by saying that someday he wants to fight Canelo, right? I mean, you don't hear novice fighters talk like that. And combine that with the fact that he's a YouTube star with a big following on social media and everything, that blew up, and that raised the bar beyond fighters of his level. Also, I don't see him as a 6-1 fighter. I see him as a 1-1 fighter, because his first real fight, in my view, was against a 47-year-old Anderson Silva, who 2 fights earlier defeated Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., a former WBC middleweight champion, in Mexico in front of Chavez's own father and Saul Canelo Alvarez. That's a big victory. And the fact that Jake went on to beat him, yeah, he was 47 years old, but he beat a guy who beat Chavez. So that's a feather in his cap. That's good. But against Fury, he just couldn't let his hands go. He averaged less than 20 punches thrown per round. And because he, Base spoke of this, when Tommy Fury has 17 years of training in boxing, he's developed the muscle memory and the instincts to react instantly to what he sees. Jake Paul doesn't have that. He hesitates. He sees an opening. His brain says, oh, I see an opening. I will now throw a punch. And by the time he tries to throw a punch, the opening is gone. And therefore the chance to score disappears. And over time, that just mounted things up against him. Tommy Fury showed, a lot more versatility. He showed him a bunch of different looks. One moment he would plow in. Another moment he would back out and he'd start circling around in both directions. He was always giving Jake something different to look at. And Paul didn't know what to do with it. And also the big right hand that had knocked people out before, he landed it on Tommy Fury and it had no effect whatsoever. So that must have been a hard reality check as well. So as far as watching the rematch, if there is a rematch, I think it will fall under the category of a make sure fight, as in the guy who wasn't supposed to win the first time around won the fight. So now we're having this rematch to make sure that what we saw the first time wasn't a fluke. Now, if Jake Paul wins the rematch, of course there's going to be a third fight, right? And people are going to make money for a third time. I'm more curious than interested. If it's going to happen, I'll watch because it's part of my job. I'm on a podcast with James Smitty Smith, and we're going to talk about it if it ever happens. So you want to watch it just so you can have an informed opinion. But the fights that really interest me are those like Naoya Inoue and Stephen Fulton, David Benavidez and Caleb Plant, Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, which we're going to talk about later. Those are the real fights that capture my interest. And hopefully the Ryan Garcia Gervonta Davis fight will pull the same kind of audience that would watch a Jake Paul fight, plus draw in the hardcores, and then boxing could have a win-win situation.
Got you. Lukey, you're another purist. So, what were your thoughts on this fight? And what are your thoughts on Jake Paul?
I mean, it's just like I still think he's going to be a world champion, but it's not based on talent. I just think that someone's going to put a belt on him at some point just because of greed. I mean, this stuff happens. It's like Butterbean and Kimbo. It's like it's fun for a group of people. It will make new fans. I didn't watch it because I don't care, but I also understand what it is. It's like boxing's the circus. If you go to the circus, you shouldn't be surprised if you see clowns. Like, I firmly believe with the landscape of boxing, Paul will be a world champion because it's the same way Paulie laid out that Chavez Jr. won a title. Remember when Sergio Martinez was stripped of his title because HBO wouldn't approve the opponent, and then Chavez Jr. gets a hand-selected opponent? I mean, we're eventually going to have a world where Paul's going to beat Fury at some point, and then they're going to find like a welterweight to fight him for some belt. Like that's how these type of things happen. Chavez, Kimbo, Butterbean. I mean, it's more of the same. It's probably like a little bit more interesting because he's a good talker, but it's in that range.
Gotcha. So another interesting fight, I think the co-feature to the main event here was Badou Jack turning back the clock, turning back time, and beating Makabu and winning the WBC Cruiserweight title. Now, big question I have for the panel is, does Badou Jack have staying power in this division, or was this basically a fight for him to ride off into the sunset? 39 years old, got that third world title, third weight class. Can he make some noise at cruiserweight if he decides to continue on? We'll start with you, Lee. What are your thoughts on Jack? Can he be a force in this division?
9 years old, and with the win, he became the oldest fighter to win a widely recognized cruiserweight belt. He beat Jacoby Fragomeni's record by 45 days. So he made a bit of history there. And he also joined James Toney as the only fighters ever to win widely recognized titles at 168 and cruiserweight. And, good for him. Frankly, I picked Makabu to win the fight based on how bad Jack looked in his previous fight against Rivera. He won. I think it was a split decision, but he didn't look particularly good. He historically hasn't been a big puncher, even at 168 or 175. So I didn't think that he would have the power that he showed. And I didn't think he would have the legs and the sharpness that he showed. He was a completely different guy. It makes me think that Badou Jack was inspired by his surroundings. He was in Saudi Arabia. He was around fellow Muslims. He was fighting for a world title. He was the underdog, and he put it all together. He he put together, he channeled his previous championship level experience, which was far superior to that of Makabu's. And he put it all together and he showed power. Where did that power come from? So he had a really good night. And I think as long as he has the right opponents, and as long as he fights in Saudi Arabia and continues to be inspired by his surroundings, he could get a defense or two. But as far as where he stacks among the fellow champions, I think right now, if he stays this version of what we saw last Saturday, he's probably between number 2 and number 3. I think Okoli's the class of the division, followed by Opataya, who really showed a lot of character and skill in fighting with a broken jaw for 10 and a half rounds and still winning. Very few fighters have had a broken jaw and won a world title. I think Tim Austin was one. There was one other as well. And then, of course, there's Gulamirian, who's 27-0. He's held the belt the longest, but I've watched video of his last fight. He's a good fighter, but I think that the other 3 are somewhat better. He's a world champion. He's no slouch, but I think Badou Jack, he showed a lot. And I think right now he's right between the second and third best of the champions. And really, considering that I didn't think he would ever become cruiserweight champion again, cruiserweight champion, period. The fact that he's champion now, he's playing with house money.
Gotcha. Lukey, what are your thoughts on Jack as a cruiserweight? And do you think he can make some noise at this division?
I mean, it's historically one of the worst divisions ever. And it's typically guys that are just like a little bit older that are going there. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame fighter to me. I think he was a top 10 fighter in 2014 and 2015, and no one really cared because he got knocked out by Porky Medina, and he was with Floyd, and people wanted to laugh at him, but he has a really great resume. I think just make fun old guy fights with him. Put him in with Sergey Kovalev. That's 2 famous people. Put him in with Breedis. He looks kind of over the hill. Just put him in the fun old guy tier. That's what I'd do.
Yeah. Shout out to D-Style. Says support Ringside Reporter Live. Thank you so much. And to you, D-Style, what are your thoughts on Jack as a cruiserweight? And do you think he can be a force in this division?
Well, Luke is not wrong. I mean, the division has been underwhelming, or at least not that well known over the years. There's some good fighters there right now, though, and I'm not too sure if Badou Jack can mess with some of those dudes. Just got to be honest. Makabu was considered by most like the weakest champion. That's one of the reasons why the Canelo fight was intriguing to begin with. Why they kind of considered that. Like, he's not a big cruiserweight. He's not the most skilled, but he's got a belt. Like, he's good, but not that good or whatever, right? He was like that perfect opponent if you want to have that first fight for a belt at cruiserweight if you're moving up, right? And Badou Jack's case, look, he won, but he didn't exactly have like a dominating performance either. Like there was a lot of resistance in that fight. I personally give Makabu at least, I think, like 4 or 5 rounds in that fight.
Wow.
Personally, I thought it was a really close contested fight, at least with a 10-point must system. It's just that Badou Jack, he made sure he took it out of the judge's hands. I don't even know what the judges had it, to be honest, but he ended it late. The right hand was landing, okay, and so shout out to him. He made it happen against the southpaw, but I'll be honest. I think I could see Canelo moving up to cruiserweight and beating Badou Jack. Like, I don't think Canelo has a problem with it. In fact, Canelo won't even get credit for doing it. People will criticize him and say he's cherry picking another dude at cruiserweight and just to get another belt. I think that's the type of fight that would be, to be honest. Now, I'm not saying Canelo should go to cruiserweight. I think he has business to handle 168 personally, or 175, but I think that's a possible fight in the future for sure. But Badou Jack, I don't know. I just don't think he's going to be unifying. And let me just say that in his weight class, I don't. I'm not too sure either I don't want to go too deep into it. I'm not sure if he's a Hall of Famer. Like I wouldn't go that far personally.
Wow. Okay. Christine, what did you think of Jack's performance, and what do you think of his chances at making some noise at cruiserweight?
So, my guy Lukey, you always like hit the nail on the head. Like you say exactly what I'm thinking. You know what? He was against a real champ. He looks competitive. But this weight class is not the money weight class. It's not the popular weight class. And I think he did well. And I disagree with these styles. I think he will stay and he will dominate and he will do what he needs to do to stay there for a little bit longer. It was
tire destroys him.
It was good for him. I mean, coming back and
it destroys him, sis. I'm sorry.
But I think and also, to be fair, I was overseas, so I caught all highlights and YouTube and everything else. So, but from what I saw, I thought he looked competitive. I thought that he looks better than his last fight. And I also, like Lee, didn't think he was going to win. But he showed me something. And maybe it was the environment, as Lee stated. But this weight class, I mean, it's good for him. I think he'll do well there for a minute or two.
Base, I'm going to throw this matchup at you. Badou Jack versus Akoli in Saudi Arabia. How does that play out?
With Badou Jack face planted on the canvas.
So what would you think would be some good fights out there for Badou Jack for him to be able to hold on to this WBC title?
Well, before I even get into that, I do want to give Badou Jack his flowers, because I actually, again, I think like Lee, I picked Makabu to win purely because Badou Jack is notoriously an extremely slow starter. And Makabu, I just felt, based on obviously, again, on the Riviera performance and everything, and just on previous performances, Badou Jack likes to sort of stay within range. And Makabu is actually very good inside, in range, mid range. And I don't know how many watched the event itself live, but I also want to call out like Coach Larry Wade and Flores and Sean Porter's commentary, because they were literally cheerleading Badou Jack the whole time, not giving any credit to what Makabu was doing. I had Makabu winning a big chunk of that fight outside of the rounds he got knocked down in. So I just want to put that out there. With regards to your question about who he can fight and whatnot, well, first things first, I think the biggest thing he achieved over the weekend was winning those Canelo sweepstakes, because him being a former 168 guy, he's not the biggest of cruiserweights. You can see that even though he looks like he's filled into it quite well, his body, you can see that there's excess flesh in terms of his size. He's a probably could still get down to maybe 180, probably not a 175 anymore, but he could get down to sort of 180, those type of weights. So I can definitely see Canelo after this John Ryder fight in May deciding, you know what, let me not go in September, let me go in November instead, go over to Saudi Arabia or somewhere like that and attempt another world title in another weight class and get that one. And it's a fight where he had actually mentioned that previously about looking at a Badou Jack, and he'd probably see Jack as a slightly easier touch than Makabu, because even though Makabu is a lot slower now than he was before, he's still naturally that size with that natural power, whereas Badou Jack is a bit similar in regular size to him. But I think it was D Styles that mentioned the Kovalev fight. If he was gonna have another fight that was outside the Canelo, oh no, it was Lukey. So yeah, I think that would have been a good that'd be actually a good fight as well, seeing as he's another guy that's not a natural cruiserweight, that's sort of only fighting around about 186, 187 pounds. So yeah, those two fights would be good. You've got the Canelo meal ticket if you can keep the belt long enough. You can have a fun fight with another very aging guy if you want. At this point, you could probably get away with another voluntary without having to deal with a mandatory. So you can find someone to fight in the interim. And then, you know, if Canelo comes calling and your mandatory, is gonna have to wait their turn. That's just how it works. So yeah, overall, I think he did very well. And I'm assuming probably if Jake Paul would have won the main event, that might have been the match they was talking about next. I could definitely have seen some scenario where that would have happened. So yeah, he's gonna use that belt like his Middle East World Tour belt at the moment. He's not gonna fight anyone credible outside of Canelo, I think. And like I said, maybe a Kovalev, but he's won in life. I do think he will be a Hall of Famer. Don't know if he'll be first ballot, but he's definitely in that list. He's had some very bad decisions that have gone against him in the past. You know, if some of those decisions went the correct way, you look at his resume and it is an impressive resume. So yeah, big up to Badou Jack. I mean, I haven't really got much negative to say about him. He rolled back the years. He changed his style. He fought in a way that no one expected him to, and ultimately he managed to get the job done. So congrats.
Excellent. Yeah, good take, Base. So another fight that kind of flew under the radar a little bit, obviously didn't get as much attention as this fight, Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, was Subriel Matias versus Jeremias Ponce. And Matias has been making some noise, very, very powerful puncher, very explosive guy at 140. Now, once again, he delivered, did what was expected. He was in there with a tough guy in Ponce, and he got him out of there. And he did it in impressive fashion. How does he match up against guys like Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis? Would he be a serious threat to those guys? Could he be one of the main guys or the main guy in this division when it's all said and done? I'll go right back to you, Lee. What did you think of Matias, and do you think that he could be the next face at 140? You're muted, sir.
Great and shot for shot explosiveness. Regis, I think, is more experienced. He's fought better competition. And because I thought Regis did enough to beat Josh Taylor when they met, I see Regis as the top dog in the division right now. Taylor hasn't fought since February of last year. He had problems making the weight when he fought Jack Catterall. And even though he's scheduled, I think he's tentatively scheduled, if they haven't already firmed this down, he's supposed to fight Teofimo in June. The question is, can Josh Taylor get down to weight safely, and can he fight effectively? That's a big question, and he still has to prove that. But Matias showed skill and toughness, and he showed a great chin because Ponce really went after it in the opening round. He came out with everything. He threw the whole boat at him. And Matias stood up to it, and he fought back, and he not only won the fight, he made Ponce retire on his stool. And remember, with this victory, he has now made 4 consecutive opponents retire on their stools, just like Vasily Lomachenko did during his Nomaschenko phase of his career. Now Lomachenko beat better fighters during that time, but Ponce has that attrition power about him. He does tend to get into firefights, and that could be dangerous for him over the long term. But he is good enough to beat all the other champions on any given night. And he's going to be exciting for as long as he's here. I was impressed by what I saw, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the next chapters are going to be.
Gotcha. Hot Boxing Minute, what's going on, brother? What did you think of Matias, and do you think that he's a threat at 140? You think he can challenge guys like Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor? You think he may be avoided?
Oh, first off, hi to everybody on the panel. My apologies. I was having some technical difficulties. Yes, Subriel Matias, impressive performance. He kind of reminds me of Goodness. Who was I going to say? Oh, I'm drawing a blank right now. Who was the one that had the plaster in his gloves?
Margarito.
He reminds me of Antonio Margarito in that he just has like a relentless type of offensive style. I don't think he's as varied in his punches or also like a Jarrett Hurd kind of fighter. Great performance in his last fight against Jeremias. How would he do against the other guys in the division? Based on their last performances, I think he would definitely give Alberto Puello problems, but he's going to have that fight with Rolly, so that's on hiatus. Josh Taylor, who I used to kind of look at as like the wonder kind of that division, didn't look so good in his last performance. And I guess the general rule of thumb in boxing is you're only as good as your last performance, but maybe I chalked it up to fluke. I think Regis Prograis for sure gives him a run for his money because Regis just has too many tools. Josh Taylor, if he looks anything like the old Josh Taylor, I believe he has too many tools also, but with the kind of skill set that he has, you really can't discount Subriel Matias. He just has a relentless kind of style, and that power that he has is not to be taken lightly. So I think he has as good a shot at any, but I would definitely lean in favor of Regis 50-50 with Josh Taylor.
Okay. Christine, what do you think of Matias? Do you think he's going to be the new boogeyman at 140? Do you think these other guys may just
I do. I believe that he's heavy-handed in both hands, which is a plus. But I believe that Regis is too. So as far as these big names and with Taylor, I think that he would beat Josh Taylor personally. Right now, if I had to bet today, I would say he would beat him. But I think that Regis would be his only obstacle in this weight class right now because they're both heavy-handed. They're both relentless. They're relentless. They're both mean. They're both hungry. And I think it would be an all-out war. I think that would be like a super fight. But I think he is definitely a force to be reckoned with. I do. I think that he is going to be a new face in 140, and he is going to be a boogeyman. He is a boogeyman.
Got you. Lukey, what are your thoughts on Matias, man?
I mean, he's scary because it's like he does a bit more than I think people give him credit for. I was watching the fight, and it's like he's defensively aware. He kind of reminds me of that movie Sphere. It was like a Michael Crichton or Michael Clayton book where there's this big alien ship in the ocean, and the first thing it says is "I'm happy," and they're like, "Oh God, that's terrible." And they say, "Why is that?" Because you don't want it to have emotion. When you have one of these big punching guys that's killed a guy, and there's a temperament to Matisse that's intimidating because I think he enjoys hurting people. I shouldn't say that, but I just look at him and I just get the feeling like there's a level of he doesn't want to just beat you. He wants to forever scar you. That's like the mentality I see with him. And what I saw in this fight was he saw a guy that said, okay, I'm going to punch the bully in the face and I'm going to push him back. That was the mentality Ponce came in. And he was defensively responsible to me. And that's a little bit frightening because normally guys like this, they're kind of one-trick ponies. I don't think this is a guy that's going to block and do a lot of defense. He's definitely going to have an expiration date, but he's doing a lot more than I think we're giving him credit for because the punishment he puts on people both mentally and physically, it makes people want to stop the fights. You know, he's up there with Lomachenko with a completely different fight, and he's got kind of this aura of kind of a killer in the ring. I mean, you look at my guy Charles Conwell, he wears a patch that says all day Pat Day. I don't even think Matisse addresses Maxim Davyshev. Like, there's no patch or anything. There's a level of fear associated with this guy that I don't think we often see in boxing.
Gotcha. D-Style, do you agree with Lukey? Is Matias that scary? And, you know, you were pretty high on this guy. Were you surprised at how he handled Ponce on Saturday?
You know, I wasn't surprised at the result. However, and I don't think Subriel Matias is getting enough credit for this. Early in the fight with Ponce, I kind of keep track on Twitter, just get a feel what people are saying and compared to what I'm watching. And I was watching people after people just saying things like, "Oh, he's getting beat up, he's getting overwhelmed. Oh, Ponce, he's bringing it. Matias he's just like," and I don't know what they were talking about. I gotta be honest. I saw Matias. He didn't win the round, but I saw a calm fighter, calm in the storm, knowing, this is a 12-round championship fight. Like, if you're going to burn yourself out in the first, go ahead. And that surprised me. It surprised me that he didn't start trading with him that early, given the fact that that's what he wants. He wants the opponent to come at him, right? And the conventional wisdom is if he's the bully, you go at the bully, you take the fight to him. But in this case, he actually showed me how smart he is in the ring. And usually fighters that are sluggers like that don't get credit for that. He stayed smart, he stayed poised, and he waited for his turn, right? And that came in around the middle of the second round where he kind of took over. And he also, I believe, strategically lured Ponce into his type of fight. He allowed Ponce to back him up. He allowed Ponce to stay the aggressor. He allowed him to tee off as much as he wanted. And I think that gave Ponce confidence. I think he went back to the corner thinking, man, I'm backing this dude up. He don't even want to punch me back. And I think he was a little surprised when he started punching it back in the second round, but it was a little too late now. You're already caught in that type of fight. You made it a back alley brawl. Now you're in his world, and he waited just enough to give him the confidence to stay there and then take over the fight. Matias. What makes Matias scary is that he's got power in both hands. Okay, he cracks, and he's like kind of what Teddy Atlas used to say, like his punches hurt even when he misses, even when he didn't hit you 100%, they still hurt, and that's what he is, And I think, just think about it, Ponce's corner, right? They know their fighter. They know what he was getting hit with, and they said, "That's it," because they knew what was going to happen, right? They saw the writing on the wall, and I think, and even Ponce after the fight was like, "Yeah, I respect what my corner said," and because I think he knew what was going on. Now, can he compete with? Because now we're talking about different animals, like Prograis, Josh Taylor. We're talking about a different level now, right? Can he compete with those guys? And I'm going to say yes. I think. And I hear the chat and I hear the criticisms, right? He gets hit too much. Like, look, Subriel Matias is never going to be a defensive wizard. Okay, you're not going to see this guy do pull counters any day soon. Okay, but he's not going to be Floyd Mayweather overnight. He's never going to fight that way. What makes Subriel Matias is the way he fights, right? I'm a firm believer that when guys reach a certain level, they're doing it because they do what they do best. If Subriel Matias try to fight the way people say he should fight, he probably doesn't make it to this level, right? He's going to be who he is. He's always going to be in a fight. I would still favor Prograis. He's too well-rounded, like somebody pointed out in the chat, and so is Josh Taylor. They're too well-rounded, right? Wow. They're going to do different things, and I think they'll find a way to win, but it ain't going to be easy, okay? And I won't count out Subriel Matias. That's how I feel.
Got you. Base, are you impressed with Matias? What are your thoughts on him being a top dog in this division?
Very impressed with Matias. Look, as has been stated, he fights a specific style, right? But I think a little bit like someone like Artur Beterbiev. Obviously, Beterbiev can kind of do everything. He can box when he wants to, but ultimately he knows how to just be in your vicinity at all times. And when he's there, you have to ultimately fight the fight he wants. There's, if he's right on your chest, you can't be trying to pick shots. You need to fight to keep him away from you, keep him off you, keep his hands up, which is what he wants. He wants you to be exchanging, to be wearing down and gassing yourself out, because the type of fight he fights, the way he moves, the shots he selects, he does everything at his own rhythm. And unless you are a master of dictating space where he's now got to be chasing you left, right, and center, that's just not a fight you're going to win, because he knows where his head needs to be every time he's about to either throw a shot or when a shot's coming towards him. Obviously, he's got a very good tight guard. Yes, he gets hit, but everything is almost like is shock absorbent. He does just enough to take enough of the sting out of whatever shot you're throwing at him. And when his head's in the game, as we've seen, every fighter he faces, they retire or they get knocked out. It's pretty much that simple. One victory, the one defeat he had, he avenged it via knockout. It came after the Dadashev tragedy, which obviously would kind of mess with most people. It seemed to affect him. He shook that off after a while, went back to business. Now, of the current champions that we've got at 140, the only one I actually picked to beat him now is Regis. And that's because Regis is still, he's got the power to make sure that you're not just going to think that this is a phone booth fight and it's just you one-way street on your way. But he's also got enough of the movement, being able to control range, control distance, and obviously coming from that southpaw angle where you've got to now change the trajectory of your shots to back him, sort of to back him up. I think that's the only one. And even now, I say that now. If we was talking a year, 2 years down the line, another 2 or 3 fights from Matias, then I actually pick him to beat Regis as well, because a bit more wear and tear on the body, more miles on the clock. It takes a lot longer to get into rhythm, to stay in rhythm, probably a couple more harder fights, damage, etc. Whereas Matias is still going to be in that peak part of his career and his freshness. I think he beats Josh Taylor right now. Again, we haven't seen Josh Taylor in the ring for 14, 15, going to be nearly 17 months by the time he fights again. Struggled to make weight the very last time, injury prone. He seems like looks like a knockout waiting to happen at this point, if I'm honest. And I think he beats Preo as well, because I don't really see. I mean, Preo's a good general basic operator, but again, he's not going to be able to dictate pace against Matias. He's gonna get himself drawn into a fight he doesn't want, where he's either going to have to run and sort of just get beat up on the back foot, or he's going to have to sort of stand and trade and just be blocking everything that comes through. So Matias is definitely he's definitely beatable. Like, Matias is definitely a beatable fighter, but it's going to take the best of the best, I think, to beat him and to not allow him to dictate how the fight is going to play out. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it. But definitely a worthy champion. It's just the issue with him is going to be, it won't even be the unifications as such. It's going to be being able to just get voluntaries or mandatories to fight him. If the purses ain't going to be enough for the for the sustained beating that people know they're going to have to take, even in victory. Because there's nobody that has an easy time with him, regardless of whether they win or lose. And that's what you now have to weigh up. It's the financial reward plus the belt versus what you're going to have to go through in the ring and after the fight.
Yeah, it's a tough style we have to deal with. Boxing, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Says, Beeve, what happened to Jerry? Well, Jerry calls in on Sunday, so this isn't the call-in show, but maybe we'll see him this upcoming Sunday. And Rider of the Storm with the 199 super chat said, salute, Matias is a victim of the moment hype job. Wow, okay. And then we have another $2 super chat from Eve saying career longevity isn't his concern. Okay. All right. Well, he does have a style where, it could be taxing on the body. So that is a good point. Let's talk about this matchup coming up Saturday. Very interesting matchup. These two styles, I think, definitely are going to make for a great fight. Mark Magsayo versus Brandon Figueroa. Brandon Figueroa is a big favorite here, but Mark Magsayo can bring it. I mean, I don't think this is a walk in the park for Figueroa. So I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think of this matchup? Who do you got winning? And do you think that this is going to be a competitive matchup, or do you think Figueroa runs away with it, as the odds makers are saying? Start with you, Christine. What do you think of this matchup? What do you like?
Well, I mean, Figueroa moved up, and Magsayo is natural 126. So for me, it's not. I don't see Fig running away with it. I really don't. And he takes a lot of shots. I've always criticized that. He's not going to change his defense, but it is what it is. So I don't know. I don't think that he's going to pull it out. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he will, because he does have that grit and that toughness. But he's not a natural 126. So I'm curious. I think Magsayo, I'm going to go with him tonight. That's my pick.
Gotcha. D, what do you think of this fight? How do you think this fight plays out? And who do you got winning, man? Figueroa or Magsayo?
Well, look, let me say this. I agree with you, Beeb. I think this is a sleeper. I think people are just assuming that Figueroa is going to walk in and win this fight like it's a given or something. I don't think this is a given at all. Like he's moving up in weight class against someone who's actually campaigning at the weight class. And look, Magsayo, I get that Russell just had one arm, but nonetheless, he has a win over Gary Russell, okay, which he was a big underdog in. And I don't think he's ever looked like terrible in the fight. Like this is someone who's in it, like to win it, But with that said, I'm very high on Figueroa. Okay, he reminds me of his brother Omar. Obviously, I mean they train the same or whatever, right? I'm looking forward to the weigh-in. I hope his sister is there. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's very important to keep family together.
No, it's a family show.
Of course.
The sister's gonna distract Magsayo in the middle of the fight. I'm just pointing that out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, provide that distraction, so he could look away and pop him with the right hand when he's not looking. I'm just saying, okay? But here's the thing. Here's the thing. The work rate of Figueroa is no joke. Now, whether he's going to keep it up, I think his work rate will probably get better because he's not cutting as much weight. Right now, that's just a total guess of mine, but I think his work rate's going to get even better in this fight. Now, I get that there's more resistance. The higher you go in weight class, the fighters have more punch resistance and they hit harder. So I get that, right? But I still think his output's going to be higher, and I think that's what's going to win in the fight. But I think it's going to be a tough fight. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. I just don't. He ain't walking no poodle in the park. He's going to be walking a pit bull in the park. Okay, like this is going to be a tough one. Shout out to pit bull lovers, but it's an analogy. It is what it is. But luck, all right? Tough fight. It's going to be a gritty fight. He's going to edge it out, like convincingly, but edge it out. I got the Heartbreak Kid or whatever his nickname is. The Heartbreaker. What's his nickname?
That's right.
I think it's Heartbreaker. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Heartbreaker, yeah. Absolutely.
Heartbreaker, there we go.
So
he
Hotbox
still looks 12, though. He looks like 12 years old. I'm saying.
He looks young. So Hotbox a minute, like I said, we got two styles. These guys come full speed ahead forward, offensive fighters. Seems like this is a recipe for an action-packed fight. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Do you think that this is a competitive fight? And do you think the odds makers may have it wrong?
But before I say anything, let me start off. All praises due to the great savior Al Heyman and the PBC because they have been putting on some crazy fights for the first quarter of 2023. And it's going to further continue this weekend. Mark Magsayo and Brandon Figueroa, Heartbreak Kid, or I think that's what his name is. But that is such a fun stylistic matchup. You're right. It's totally getting slept on. Brandon Figueroa is volume. Mark Magsayo is an explosive counterpuncher. I'm really high on Mark Magsayo. I'm Filipino, but Brandon Figueroa, I'm also high on him. Westlaco, Texas finest. Of course, you've got his sister. I think her name is Omada. I could be wrong, but nice and easy on the eyes. That helps for the marketing sake.
Does it matter what her name is?
Yeah, it does matter.
Please,
it does matter.
Please, D-Style.
Brandon in that last fight with Carlos Castro, I saw a lot of good things. He was fighting behind his jab to start off with. He was kind of adjusting and learning different things. And I actually saw him figure out an opponent, which was something I hadn't seen him do when he was in bantamweight. Prior to that, he was just kind of avalanche offense on people and just kind of throwing as many punches as he could at them like he did against Stephen Fulton and against Luis Netti. He didn't have that same approach against Carlos Castro. And my guy, Mark Magsayo, I did not see any ability to adjust in that fight he had with Gary Russell Jr. Like he barely beat a guy with one arm, but it was like, number one, if you're kind of got a reputation for being an explosive knockout puncher, get the guy with one arm out of here. And that's also a testament to Gary Russell lineage, that family knows what they're doing, out there in the DMV area. But I think a guy with one arm, that's cannon fodder for a guy who's supposed to be a knockout artist. And he didn't really adjust well. And I think Brandon Figueroa is going to have the advantage. Just he has a few more tools in his kit. He's got that iron chin. If his chin can hold up to the counter punches, I think at some point that volume is going to break down Mark Magsayo's counter punching specialty, and we might get a late stoppage. But I'm definitely leaning in favor of Brandon Figueroa in that fight.
Got you. So, Lukey, what do you think of this matchup? Who do you got? And do you think that Magsayo could pull up the upset here?
I mean, to me, this feels like Luis Neri, Azap, Hovhannissian all over again, where there's like a clear A. Well, it's like the summary of boxing right now. There's a clear A side and a clear B side, but this is a very good A side, B side fight. Like Figueroa has had all the money behind him. Magsayo is an extremely good fighter, and I mean, it's basically just going to come down to they're probably going to run into each other and who can take the better punch. Like, I don't think like when I'm looking at either fighter, I'm like, man, I can't wait to see the gameplay and these guys enact. Whoever's tougher. So, I mean, really, when you're looking at a fight like this, who's younger, who's taking less damage? Those are the guys that typically win this. Because, I mean, Figueroa's got a little bit of X factors, but he gets hit with everything. Maybe that's too harsh. He gets hit with 80% of things or 70% of things. And Magsayo, I mean, he's good, but he does his thing. Like, he has one thing he does, and he doesn't branch outside of it. I wish I could be at the fight. I think it's going to be a violent fight. And if Figueroa can put on a great performance, that would be awesome. He has a real chance to be a star.
Okay. Base, who do you got Saturday, man?
All right, so this is where my name comes into play, the hardcore casual. So I will admit that I haven't seen much of both of them. I know who they are. I've seen some of their fights, but not enough where I feel like I could make a comprehensive guess based on analysis. So what I will say is I think if Figueroa is moving up for this fight, there's probably something that he's seen that he believes he can capitalize on. Maybe it will be due to activity, thinking that maybe he could just outwork Magsayo, make him miss ultimately, and just basically rack up a points win or a very late sustained corner stoppage or ref stoppage if you say you're taking too much damage. But yeah, the fight itself, I will be watching it. As I said, I've seen some of their fights before, but not enough where I can make a conclusive prediction. But just to go against the grain, I'm gonna go with the Filipino fighter on this one. I think Magsayo, the natural size, he's gonna prove why weight classes matter.
Got you. Well, this is a topic that I've been talking about for a long time, and go ahead. I can't hear you.
Real quick.
I hadn't offered my thoughts yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't get you, Lee. I'm sorry. Let me let Lee go. Here, my fault, Lee.
Well, I'm in the bottom square, I guess.
Yeah, I almost
kiddie
missed you,
table.
Lee. I apologize. Go ahead, Lee. I don't know how I forgot you.
Yeah, well, it happens, I guess. Must be the red hair. I don't know. But anyway, as far as the fight is concerned, it's going to be a good fight. It really is. As far as moving up in weight is concerned, I think that Figueroa is going to actually. It really is. As far as weight is concerned, I think that Figueroa is going to actually be more comfortable. Okay. All right. I think he's going to be more comfortable because in the Fulton fight, which he lost at least on the official scorecards, he was saying he was itching to move up to 126. He was weight weakened. Now he's going to be more comfortable. He's at 126. And he is very aware of how debilitating his style is over the long term. And in fact, in his last fight against Carlos Castro, he actually tried some long-range boxing. He said he was wanting to be smarter, more intelligent, wanting to preserve himself a little more. Well, in the early rounds of that fight, he didn't fare so well when he tried to box, even though he is a long-armed, tall boxer. So I think for this fight, at least, he should just be himself. Be who I call the Westlaco Whirlwind, I think that's a better nickname than the Heartbreaker, but that's just me. But he should go right at it. He should do what he does. And Magsayo does have a history of having difficulty against volume punchers who are physical with him. Julio Ceja knocked him down in the fifth round of their fight. And Ceja's a big volume puncher. And, Magsayo had to come from behind to beat him. As far as volume is concerned, Ray Vargas outboxed him. He used his volume and his length to outbox him. I just believe that Figueroa is going to be strong. He's going to be comfortable. He is going to probably use his attrition to wear down Magsayo, who also has issues with stamina. He has lost energy late in fights, and Figueroa just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So I think that that Figueroa is going to win by an attrition-based TKO sometime during the fight's second half.
Okay. So you're a CompuBox guy, Lee. So let me ask you this. This is going to kind of be the CompuBox machines are going to be on fire in this fight. These are 2 volume guys, right?
Especially Figueroa. Figueroa, I think, leads the categorical leaders as far as punches thrown per round. He's number 1.
Wow.
But he's also the number 1 guy as far as opponents' connect percentage. His defensive skills are just not good. And he really makes up for it by being accurate himself and also with the huge work rate. Like Subriel Matias earlier, we talked about how draining and how physical and how much of a toll his style might have on him over the long term. It's definitely the case for Figueroa. And all you have to do is look at his older brother. That's what happened to him. He was in several fight of the year type scraps. I think Arakawa was one of them in 2014. And time and injury and inactivity sort of all conspired together, and eventually he faded from the scene and lost what it was that made him an outstanding fighter during his peak. I think Brandon saw that. He's still young enough to make changes, and he's going to try to make those changes. But I think as far as this fight is concerned, he should just be himself, be physical, tire out Magsayo, and score the TKO victory.
Yeah. Figueroa definitely epitomizes that saying, the best defense is a good offense, for sure.
I just want to add to my prediction, if I may.
Sure.
So I think what's going to happen, I'm going to be very detailed. So I think Magsayo is going to have Figueroa right where he wants him. He's about to knock him out. He's at the brink. He's going to have him against the ropes. He's about to knock him out. And then Figueroa's sister, she's going to get on the ring apron, right? Please. Do a little tease. He's going to do a little tease.
Please,
distract Magsayo.
It's a family show.
And then the Heartbreak Kid's going to land the boxing version of the Sweet Chin Music, a nice right hand, and right across the chin, knock out Magsayo in devastating fashion, and then they're going to celebrate over his body. You know what I mean? Like that's what's going to happen.
Jesus Christ. All right. So like I said before, I've been talking about this topic for a while, and I've been getting a lot of heat on my thoughts about it. And I'm just going to start off by making an analogous comparison here. Now, David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant was announced on January 25th, and it was announced that it would take place in March 25th. And they already had an arena. They had the fight up on both the PBC website and the Showtime website. It was on the schedule, right? They had the press conference scheduled for the following week, which was about 6 or 7 days later, right? And they had everything going full steam ahead. The ball was rolling. They were promoting it. Both fighters are doing interviews, right? And, it was being talked about a lot. So let's take this Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia fight that supposedly is supposed to happen on April 22nd. Originally, it was supposed to be April 15th. Now it's April 22nd. Now, this isn't even up on the PBC website yet. It's not up on the Showtime website. There's no venue set yet. And I think we have like 7 weeks left to this proposed date that this fight is supposed to take place, right? So my question is, wouldn't you want to get this venue wrapped up as soon as possible so you can start selling tickets? You're not giving yourself a big window. People have to make plans. They want to travel. They want to go to Vegas, and now they're saying that these are just rumors now. These are just people from the press just floating things out there. Oh, it could be either in Allegiant Stadium or the T-Mobile Arena. Well, first of all, the Allegiant Stadium's never had a boxing event yet. So is this going to be the inaugural, I should say, boxing event that they're going to have, right? Is they going to debut with this fight, right? Two guys who really aren't proven on the pay-per-view stage, or they've never sold to a crowd of that size, because that stadium holds like 65,000. The T-Mobile is like 21,000. So why would there be such a contrast in attendance, right? In capacity, right? So this whole thing has just been kind of a blur to me. It's been weird ever since they were talking about it. I've been very skeptical about it. People have been attacking me for it. So I just got to ask everyone on this panel, start with you, D-Style. Are you 100% sure? Are you confident that this fight is actually going to happen, given the way this whole thing is played out and we still don't have a venue yet?
Well, I'm not 100% confident this fight's going to happen. I know people have already kind of, hey, they said it's going to happen, so hey, right? Look, let me first say this. I hope the fight happens. I'm hoping it happens, right? Like, I want the fight to happen. I'm not against the fight happening, all right? But I'm just skeptical. I just don't. Let's just say I don't know. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm not saying it is going to happen. I'm saying I don't know. And I don't want to just go into something blindly and just believe it because they said it's going to happen. Here's the thing. So first, and I saw you back and forth with Espinosa. Espinosa has refused to answer me, and who am I? I'm nobody, right? But I told him, are you personally guaranteeing that this fight's a go? And he won't answer me, right? He has time to like tweets that say I'm a racist. He has time for that, but he don't got time to answer a simple fucking question. Yeah, that's number one, right? But okay, fine. Let's say he doesn't have time. He has time for other shit, but okay, whatever, right? Let's put that aside. So can you give us because look, people need to plan flights. People need to plan. They need to buy the tickets. They need to know what venue it is, so they could plan like which hotel or Airbnb close to the venue they can get. Like, these things are very relevant and they do matter a lot, right? Is it going to be in the Vegas Strip? Is it going to be in where's it going to be, right? So little things matter, and they have yet. Here we are, yet another Thursday. Yet there's nothing official. The fact is, it's not official. The word official matters to me. It's not official, guys. When they say things like, oh, we've agreed to everything, we're just going to announce it official at a later date. What the hell does that mean? That means it's not official. All right. Here's what I believe may be happening. I believe that both Golden Boy and PBC still don't know 100% of this fight's going to happen, and they're playing a game of chicken. All right. They're playing a game of chicken, and they're waiting for one side to pull out so then they could blame that side for the fight not happening. That's what I believe. That's my theory. I believe that's what's possibly happening. I hope that's not the case. Even if they are, I hope they come up with an agreement and they make the fight happen. But I still don't have an official, can I get something official? He likes to point out the fact that, this is not a precedented. It happened with the Tim Tszyu fight, right? Well, with Harrison. Here's the difference, all right? Tim Tszyu and Harrison agreed to fight because Tim Tszyu was looking for an opponent. They agreed they're going to do it, and there was no argument from Harrison. To his credit, he said, yeah, I'll fight you in Australia. Let's do it, right? And cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane were all bidding for the fight, okay? That's what they were doing. There was a lot, they were bidding to get the event. Sydney, where Tim Tszyu's from, won. I'm not surprised by that, but nonetheless, that was the active thing that was going on. That's not what's going on right now. Not to my knowledge. I don't see, none of the articles had direct quotes from Espinosa, from De La Hoya, from nothing. No direct quotes. All I see is speculation. Oh, I heard from a source that told me that they're looking into possibly the stadium. I heard that it's possibly the T-Mobile. Oh, it could be the MGM. It could be assuming the fight happens. One of Idix, who I respect a lot as a journalist, but his and I don't blame him for wording it this way, but he put assuming the fight happens. These are the venues that like. Is that language we should be using when the fight's definitely going to happen and it's official? Like assuming it happens, if the fight happens, that's crazy to me. And in this case, they can't postpone it. There's no postponement because Tank's going to go to jail. Like you can't postpone it to a later date, and there's no agreement here. So I'm not the bad guy because I'm saying I don't know if the fight's going to happen. Because I've been here before. I've heard, oh, it's official. It's all but done. It's all, and I get that it's a little different than just Coppinger saying it. I get that, right? Which makes me a little optimistic because both Showtime and Golden Boy and The Zone have come out and said, hey, the fight's it's a done deal or whatever, right? But here's where I'm a little bit skeptical, and I'll deal with this. When De La Hoya comes out, and I know he's a little unhinged anyway right now, but he comes out, he's like, yeah, you're welcome. I made this fight happen. You guys are welcome. Like, that sounds like someone that's trying to affirm him and he's overcompensating. That's what it sounds like. Like someone that wants to make clear that I agreed. We at Golden Boy and Ryan agreed to everything. So it's a wink and a nod. So if this fight don't happen, it's on them, right? And we're getting the same thing from the Tank side. Oh, we agree to everything. It's a done deal. We're just waiting to announce a fight, right? I think they're playing the game. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I think they're playing a game of chicken, and they're waiting for one side to crack. And then guess what? They're going to be saying, "Oh, like don't be surprised." One side's going to pull out, and they're going to start pointing fingers at each other, right? Because that's what boxing is, the finger. They start pointing the finger at each other. Oh, it was him. It wasn't me. Blame them, right? Like. So don't be surprised that it happens. Now, once again. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the fight happens. I'll be the happiest. Like, oh, these are going to eat crow when it's official. Okay, give me the crow. I'll eat the crow with carne asada and everything. I'll put it in the grill. Okay, I'll take it. I'll love it. It is what it is. But that's what I got.
Lee, you're one of the most optimistic people I know. Right? You always look at the glass half full. Right? You're a breath of fresh air. You're Mr. Sunshine. I'm Mr. Negative. Am I missing something here with this fight? Are you at all skeptical that this may not happen?
You know, three of the most frightening words that a pundit must utter is, I don't know. And that's what I have. That's the sense that I have about this fight. Because if you recall, I think it was late last year, maybe December, where there was a social media post saying, we have a fight. Ryan Garcia is going to fight Gervonta-Davis, and it's going to be. They made it look like it was going to be next, but then a few days later, it comes out Ryan Garcia is going to fight Mercita Hesta in January, and Tank is going to have Hector Luis Garcia in January. Oh, okay, a couple of roadblock fights. Well, Ryan doesn't fight his. Tank fights his and wins, and. You know, it in many ways, Tank versus Ryan Garcia epitomizes both what is right and what is wrong with boxing. What is right is that you have two fighters in their 20s, undefeated, knockout guys, willing to fight each other. Okay, willing to even to talk. But what's wrong with boxing is that putting together a fight, even on this level, is tougher than, you know, back in the 1970s when the U.S. and the Soviet Union were negotiating nuclear arms agreements. It took years for them to do that, and it seems to be taking years for the best fights to be made because of all the, you know, the boxing's focus is about chasing the next dollar instead of looking out for the long-term interest of the sport. And it just seems to be, you know, D-Style talks about, you know, playing a game of chicken. Well, this is an extra layer of marination, you know, to this. You know, my policy really has been wake me up when they have the press conference and when they have a date and when they have a venue and the two guys are on stage and they are saying, I'm going to beat you up and I'm going to beat you up and so on and so forth. Let the process begin. But until that happens, yeah, there's doubts because we as boxing fans have been conditioned to expect the worst and hope for the best. I'm a hope for the best. You're right. You're right, Joe. I am an optimist. I tend to be an optimist. I am a hopeful guy. I hope this fight happens. I think that it will happen. It will have to happen because of what D-Cell said. There's no postponing. There is a wall, and it's called a jail cell for Gervonta-Davis that's waiting for him, probably, depending on how the sentencing goes. So it's now or never. They have to promote this fight. They have to sell tickets. People have to have some sort of certainty. And we don't have that right now. And that's a bad thing. And until that changes, it's still going to remain a bad thing.
Yeah. Lukey, I'm going to go a different direction with you on this one. It looks like Tank is going to be headed to jail in May, right? Is he even in the right frame of mind to go into a fight like this, knowing that there's a potential jail sentence hanging over his head? And now recently he's been sued for violence, some type of assault charges with someone else. The hits just keep coming with this guy. Is he even prepared to fight Ryan Garcia mentally, would you suspect?
I mean, like, kind of my overwhelming thoughts with this is, like, I don't care. Like, I make decisions to not get arrested so I don't have to be in a position where I'm in this situation. I feel for Gervonta because I feel like he's had to learn some hard life lessons on his own. But at the same time, there are consequences to your actions. And if getting into trouble before the biggest fight of your life does distract you, well, there's a simple solution. Figure out ways to not have those distractions. He has a solid team around him. I'm not into this whole talk stuff with these fights. Like, there's great fighters like Charlie Sheehy, Abdullah Mason. You got real good fighters fighting consistently that no one cares about. Amateurs on the undercard. Michael Angeletti, Jamar Talley just fought with Christine in the internationals. He's awesome. I'm way more interested in watching people that consistently fight than just talking about these two dudes who really don't even fight all that often.
Yeah. Christine, you're a realist. You're more like me, right? Lee's an optimist. You and I think we're kind of fall in line with the realist. We're not idealists. We're realists. A realist. You're more. So I got to ask you, are you confident that this fight happens?
So first of all, everything that Lukey just said and all the names that he mentioned, right on 100%. Honestly, you know what? I think it is going to happen. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they both need it. The promoters both need it. The fighters both need it. And honestly, I don't care where it happens. I don't care where it happens. But it's going to happen. Did I have my doubts? Did I wonder? But you know what? I just feel like looking at everything, I really feel like it is going to happen. Because you have to look back. Yes, the promoters right now, I mean, look at them. They're both in social media. People are criticizing them, talking their shit, whatever. Both fighters, they've been talking about this for a long time. It's got to happen, But if not, you know what? Move on. Because like Lukey said, he named some names that I know, and I'm sure some of y'all do, that are real freaking fighters, that are there, that been there, they have real talent. And if not, step aside and let the other ones come on. But I think it's going to happen. I really do. And I'm with you. Usually I'm with you like, I don't know. But I think it's going to happen. I think there's too many needs right now. I really do.
Okay. Now, Hot Boxing Minute. Are you prepared to reserve your hotel room? Are you prepared to pack your bags? Are you prepared to plan for this fight based off of what you know right now? If you were planning on going to this fight and you were dead set on it, how would you feel right now in terms of comfortability on booking your flight, reserving your hotel room, everything that you would need to do to go to this fight?
No, and hell no. Yeah, I'm not booking anything, and I really appreciate how you and D Style have been digging into Steven Espinosa's chest online, trying to get him to answer a solid question. Because you are right, people need to plan accordingly to actually have a legit fight date to go to. I heard T-Mobile, I heard the stadium, Allegiant. I'm hoping it's Allegiant, so my broke ass can go, because I'll get an Airbnb, a little cheap one, and get a nosebleed seat. I can afford that. I can't really afford MGM Grand T-Mile prices, but that's cool. I'm not confident or I'm indifferent to it, to be honest. I don't put too much stake in anything any of these promotional company executives say. I kind of loop them in the same kind of pile as like attorneys and politicians and bankers. Like, take everything they say with a grain of salt, because their job is to manipulate words and semantics. So you already know he's probably lying through his teeth, but that's what he got to do for a living. You know what I'm saying? And definitely against, a whole wall of journalists or industry journalists, people who are desperately trying to get the truth out. These guys, I don't know why they haven't given us an established date. I hope the fight happens. Like Christine was saying, Tank and Ryan need this fight for their brand. Boxing needs this damn fight. There's just too much money on the table, and hopefully it does happen. But after what happened with the Crawford Spence fiasco, I keep everything with a major grain of salt when it comes to big events. Like, hey, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm not booking anything or making any plans until I get for sure ticket dates and all that stuff. So in that respect, I'm still holding my breath.
And you really want to go to this fight. So this is kind of frustrating for someone like you that really wants to go, right? Because you have to sit there and wait, right?
Yeah, I do have to wait. And if it comes down to it, I might just end up having to go take that trip down to Mexico and Guadalajara if they come up with ticket dates for that. And I don't have the money to go to both. So these guys need to make a decision on what's going on here.
Go ahead, Dave.
Take that trip down, money to go to both. So these guys need to make a decision on what's going on here. These guys need to make a decision on what's going on here.
Go ahead, Dave.
I interviewed Glenn Jennings, and he gave me a date when they're going to announce the venue.
I can't hear you, Dave. All right, I can't.
Promoters do that, right? So I was given him.
Yeah, he's having some audio issues. So let me ask you, Base, are you planning on flying down for this fight? What's up?
Am I even allowed in the country?
Of course you are, Base.
Well, I mean, there's vaccination laws over there, ain't there?
No, not anymore. Not anymore.
Oh, what, you got rid of those, yeah?
Yeah, we got rid of those.
Oh, nice. Well, I still ain't going. But I don't think it's happening. I mean, look, I put out I've been saying since the Hector Garcia fight, I don't think this fight is happening. I'm quite happy to be wrong. I'm very easy to retract a statement and say when I'm wrong. No one's never got to come looking for me. I'm very front and center. Yeah. But this is just me. Now, again, I'm not a historian. And as Zeke the Freak says, Zeke the Sneak, I apologize. I may be fraudulent in this one, but I don't know the last time there's been a quote unquote mega fight that hasn't had any promotion behind it within 9 weeks of the fight taking place. Not even
seven base.
Is it 7 now?
7. We're counting down to 7 right now.
Let's Silk Lukey be rude. I think the example is Floyd Mayweather Pacquiao, which was like 12 days before something stupid.
What, 12 days before what?
I mean, it was like really close to the fight when they announced Manny and Floyd.
I think they had 8 weeks though, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it 8? Somebody should look it up because I remember that was like very like the last.
And they were negotiating with Les Moonves for like 12 before they got it over the line. You know what I mean?
That actually made the fight better for me. Hearing about those negotiations actually greatly made the fight better.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, I'm happy again. I'm happy to be wrong on that. But from my knowledge and based on, I guess, how I see things over here, we've never had a quote unquote mega fight that people didn't know about at least 2.5, 3 months before with a proper professional poster at least. Thus far I've seen I've seen fan made posters being retweeted by Showtime Boxing and Steven Espinoza. So I really don't know exactly what's going on there. And I don't see it from the point that one of the fighters is the person that quote unquote announces the fight just in a standard tweet with no kind of graphics or production behind the tweet. These are things that I'm not used to seeing. So with all of this, I just have to say, yes, all of it looks like it's a grandstanding, it's a posturing, and then something's gonna happen, and then someone's gonna want to blame someone else, and then ultimately one of them is going to end up fighting on that date and just fighting someone saying, well, look, I tried to get the right fight for you, but this is what we can give you instead, and we'll look at that one in the future. That's kind of how it's looking to me. But again, very happy to be wrong. It's not a fight that I'm dying for, but it probably is a high profile fight that the game does need right now. So we'll see.
D-Style says No Limit Promotions gave a date that they were announcing the venue for a press conference versus Zoo versus Harrison. And the reason why we're talking about the Zoo versus Harrison fight is because Steven Espinosa was trying to compare this situation to that situation. But as D-Style said, they had venues openly bidding for that fight. We don't know what's going on, who wants this fight, because a lot of times when you hear Eddie Hearn or Top Rank talk about a fight, they'll throw the promoters themselves will throw the arenas out there saying, oh, we have offers from here, here, here. No one's saying that right now. You know what I mean? We knew Pacquiao Mayweather was going to be, at the MGM Grand. And I think Lee said that the fight was announced on February 19th, Lee? The fight was actually announced for May? Okay. Yeah, so again, not every situation is optimal. We realize that. But this is an outlier, to say the least. I mean, this is not how ultimately you would want something to go, in terms of getting a fight over the line, a fight of this magnitude, right? So let's we'll kick it back to Saudi, because everyone was there. We had Deontay Wilder there. We had Mike Tyson there. We had Devin Haney there. We had Tyson Fury there. We had a lot of dignitaries at Saudi Arabia, and Deontay Wilder was there, and he said he was there on business, right? He had Shelly Finkel there with him, his manager, and he was being interviewed by several people there. And he said that his next fight is going to be there probably in April or May, most likely May. And he said it's going to be something big. Now, I've been hearing it could possibly be Francis Ngannou, right? So I got to ask the panel to go around real quick. Who do you think Deontay Wilder will fight? And do you think it will be Ngannou, or do you think it'll be someone else of a high status? What's your take on that? We'll go right to you, Lukey.
I mean, this whole Saudi Arabia thing is awkward, just in the sense that they're basically doing a whole tourism push through sports, through golf, through boxing, but you can't really criticize Saudi Arabia or bring up issues that you might have with the public policy. But hey, they're going to pay the fighters a ton. And I think Saudi Arabia is seeing that boxing is probably one of the best things to align with, because people are really poor and people will just do whatever for the money. Our sport has no ethical dilemma for the most part about anything if money's attached. And that's kind of the good and bad of boxing, is people will just be how can we get to a paycheck? Saudi Arabia is going to run boxing for the next however long they want to do this sports invasion. They're basically going to be what Las Vegas is, because they're just going to give the most money to get good press for what they're doing. And if Wilder's going to go over there, I'm sure he'll fight a human being. I would assume he's going to fight someone that's an A side, B side, if he goes to Saudi Arabia to get paid a lot.
Okay. Christine, what are your thoughts on Deontay Wilder going to Saudi Arabia? What are your thoughts on Saudi Arabia as a whole being this new supposed capital of boxing, right?
Well, quite honestly, I started hearing the whispers 2 years ago. So, they were rumors, and we heard it was coming, and yeah, I believe that it will be for the next, 10, 15, maybe 20 years, honestly. But as far as the big name, the first name that came to mind for me, and who I think it will be, I think it's going to be Andy Ruiz. Because really, like, who else would Deontay fight right now? Who else would he risk his comeback? Maybe I'm crazy, but that's my guess. I think it's Andy Ruiz, and I do think that Saudi Arabia is going to be the Mecca for a minute. I do.
D, what do you think of Deontay Wilder going to Saudi? You think it's going to be in Ngannou? Do you like fights going to Saudi? Do you like this tradition of the big fights not being in Vegas anymore? And do you think Saudi is going to steal the shine away from Vegas in the future?
Arabian Nights. Like I'm just saying, like Arabian Nights, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. It's all about the money. Blood money for a blood sport. Like that's just the way it is, okay? First of all, boxing's been that outlaw sport that took money from places like it's the way it is. You know what I mean? Like when they're trying to ban boxing, they would go to the desert in the middle of Reno and shit. People would buy tickets for a train to nowhere. All right, it wasn't to a fight, but they knew what they were purchasing. You know what I mean? They would go to Savannah, Cuba. Okay, they went to Australia and shit. Okay, the 2 title fights. All right, Jack Johnson was over there in Mexico when they were trying to arrest him. You know, whatever. Look, at the end of the day, this always been an outlaw sport that will go to the highest bidder. That's nothing new. It's prize fighting. It is what it is. So this is nothing new to boxing. But I don't condone the human rights violations that Saudi Arabia does. But as Gabriel Montoya pointed out last week, if we're going to start banning countries based on human rights violations, we're probably going to ban the whole world. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. But look, I think Ngannou is a possibility. I think incinerates Ngannou, to be honest with you. If it's not a box, if it's not anything outside of a boxing match, okay, fine. But in a boxing fight, he will incinerate this dude, right? He will, like Thanos snapped his fingers and got rid of half the universe or whatever. He will incinerate this dude, okay? Like there's no, like that's it. But I do agree with Christine. I think it's Andy Ruiz. The Saudis are no stranger to Andy Ruiz. They know who he is. The Saudi prince ate tacos with the dude. Okay, like they shared tacos. He showed them how to put the sauce, the salsa on the tacos, how to do the 45-degree angle, take that bite. Andy Ruiz taught the Saudi prince how to eat tacos. That's how much they know about this dude, okay? I think that's a fight that's going to happen, to be honest. But what I want to really talk about is that big hug. You see that big hug that he gave his brother, Tyson Fury? He rested his head on his shoulder. And then they told him blessings. You know what I mean? Like he gave him his blessing. There's nothing better you can tell a person. Go to somebody and say, blessings to you. Blessings to your family. That's like the most beautiful thing you can tell anybody. You know what I mean? What happened to it's on site? What happened to bad blood? What happened to you try to kill me with an egg weight and all that shit? What happened to that? What happened to, because a lot of these, I don't know, man, a lot of these Wilder, channels out here, right? This whole we're at war and we ain't gonna be friends and till Fury goes to jail. This whole thing it ain't working out. It just isn't. Okay, he just gave him a big hug, a kiss in the cheek. He gave him dap, and they gave him his blessings. I'm just gonna put that out there. Okay, at the end of the day, right? Point blank. Period. It is what it is. That's all I gotta say. Arabian Nights.
Okay, I want to thank Prince Khalid. Shout out to Saudi Arabia. Hot Boxing Minute. Are we going to get Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury number 4 in Saudi Arabia?
Hey, first out, shout out to sports washing. Money can clean up all sins, apparently. But at the same token, it's not like, in a deeper sociological talk that we don't commit our own crimes against humanity. But let's not talk about that. I don't want to see a 4th fight between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. That is played out, and I really hope that doesn't happen. I'm glad that those two have embraced for the betterment of the boxing world, I guess. Hopefully that embracement, we can do away with the Glovegate conspiracy. Oddly enough, there are people still holding on to that. Saudi Arabia being the new capital of boxing, as long as they're interested in the sport, then I mean, I have no qualm with it. I have a hard enough time getting out to Vegas for big events, so I probably won't be able to go out to Saudi Arabia unless I get some kind of membership or media credential out there. As far as historically, like D-Style was saying, I mean, I got a book right in front of me called Shelby's Folly about how they scammed Shelby Montana back in the Jack Dempsey days. You know, this is nothing new in boxing. They go out there and they do fights in Kinshasa, Zaire, Africa with warlords, and now we're out here in Saudi Arabia. And based on what I've seen from all the reporters that are out there, all the fighters that are out there, and what they've been showing on social media with the ornate, decorative gold interiors and marble floors and Bentleys and limousines, there's just too much money for these fighters not to go out there and fight. And I'm surprised that some huge rich Arab oil baron doesn't decide to buy boxing altogether with like a $6 billion payment and put it all under one roof like UFC. Who knows? But as far as the next potential opponent for Deontay Wilder, my best two guesses are going to be Francis Ngannou and Andy Ruiz, being that Anthony Joshua's already committed, and I really don't think there's much interest in that fourth fight with Tyson Fury. How many times can one guy beat another dude senseless before we get the picture? But those are my two best guesses. Sports washing for the win.
Base, are you in agreement with Hot Boxing Minute, or what's your take on this whole situation with Deontay Wilder and Saudi Arabia as being the new boxing capital of the world?
I mean, it will be, realistically. For the biggest of big fights, they're all going to go there because that's where the money's going to be. And they help each other. Like Saudi get the rep of, putting on the biggest that no one else can deliver. And when, the promoters can't work together, they're the ones to get it done. So they get that from it. And all the boxers get elevated purses higher than they would be getting on any network or any streaming site, platform, whatever. So, yeah, the biggest of the big will go there. In terms of Wilder and who he's facing, I don't know. And I'm not going to say I don't care, because I would care if it was someone that was just another typical Wilder opponent, from let's say pre-2019. But as long as it's someone within the recognized Ring Magazine top 15, fine. If it's outside of that and it's the Ngannou, sideshow, I'll watch it. I'll be honest, I will watch it because, Wilder's not the most technically gifted. Ngannou has no great fundamentals, but they both have that chance of landing the right hand on each other. So I would watch that begrudgingly. But outside of that, yeah, as long as it's a top 15 opponent, a recognized one, then have at it. You had your comeback fight, so now if you're gonna go over there and take their money, that's the one good thing. I don't think that Saudi will let him just fight who he wants to fight for a war chest. They seem to only put on fights that they deem to be like the biggest in the sport. They want the biggest fights. So I don't think he can get away with, any subpar opposition, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he fights Ngannou. I think it's in Saudi, and I think it's going to garner a lot of interest. I think it's going to get some crossover appeal, and I think it'll be a big fight, in my opinion. I think it'll be a big fight. Well, that was the last topic of the night. I want to thank everyone. Did you? Oh, you didn't go again?
Yeah,
I didn't send you. I keep forgetting you on the bottom. I thought I went to you. Jesus, I'm so sorry. Go ahead. Oh, I'm embarrassed. Go ahead.
Well, as far as Deontay Wilder, when he was at the desk, he was talking about. He seemed very excited. He was brimming. He was bursting to reveal the information about what was going on. He said he was going to fight twice in Saudi Arabia before the year is out. Now, the WBC has mandated that he fight Andy Ruiz in a title eliminator. So I think Andy Ruiz is the first opponent. And I think that if Wilder beats Ruiz, which he'll be favored to do, the second part will be a fourth fight with Tyson Fury. I do. Fury's people were there, right? They hugged. Maybe it was a thank you hug. We're about to make some big money, right? So I think it's going to be Ruiz followed by Wilder. If they jump over the hurdles that they need to jump over. As far as Saudi Arabia is concerned, it is interesting that for decades, Madison Square Garden has been called the Mecca of boxing. So it's interesting that the country that houses the real Mecca, Saudi Arabia, is going to be called the Mecca of boxing, right? I have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, I am glad that boxing has enough appeal globally to attract the kind of money and attention that Saudi Arabia is willing to give it. Boxing is seen as a niche sport, especially in the United States. So anything that gives a sign that it is worth it to put on big fights, that's a good thing, and they're willing to do it. But they're also, on the other hand, there is, of course, the record on human rights, which cannot be argued, and it's horrible. While I would rather see that the big fights take place in other countries, in the UK, Australia, anywhere else that has a good record or whatever, boxing has long been called the red light district of sports for good reason. It's never shied away from controversy. I in the early days, it was an outlaw sport, and they would have these fights either on barges or in fields, and one eye would be on the ring and the other eye would be looking out for the cops who are probably going to step in and stop the fights. And then once it was legalized, Hot Boxing Minute made reference to the Rumble in the Jungle in Zaire when Mobutu Sese Seko was the dictator there. You got the Thrill in Manila in the Philippines when Ferdinand Marcos was the dictator there. So as long as the money is there, they're willing to travel anywhere under any circumstances. Like I said, the powers that be right now are all about chasing the next dollar. And Saudi Arabia right now has the dollars. If boxing, I think, is to regain the status that it once held in the sports pantheon, one of the major things that it has to do is to make the biggest fights as often as possible. And the biggest component in making those big fights is generating the big money needed to make them happen. And like it or not, Saudi Arabia is now part of the equation because one, they have the money, and two, they have the will to spend it. And so like it or not, it looks like Saudi Arabia is going to be here to stay. And we as boxing fans have to make the choice. Do we support it or do we not? That's up to us to decide.
And I guess if you cover the sport, you have no choice but to watch it. And just to piggyback off something you said, Lee, you remember back to cover the sport during the apartheid days when watch it. And just to piggyback off something, someone's got to apartheid. You mute yourself, D-Style. I think I get an echo. Apartheid days when mute D-Style. Yeah, thank you. I was getting an echo from D-Style. Sorry. Back in South Africa when they had the apartheid, and Bob Arum was doing fights in South Africa when all that stuff was going on, right? So boxing really has no shame when it comes to human rights issues, right? It's shown in the past that it doesn't, right? So did everyone go? I want to make sure before I sign off, everyone goes, because this panel is gigantic. Lee, you're hiding down on the bottom. I apologize. I missed you twice tonight. That's inexcusable. So I hope you forgive me for that.
It is what it is.
Does anyone else have anything to add? Any last words before we sign off tonight? Everyone good?
I just want to say this really quick. Katie Taylor, she's challenging Cameron. She wants to move up. She don't want to wait for Serrano, and it looks like that's the fight that might happen in June. I'm sorry, in May. So in Ireland, and I think it's a bigger fight. I think it's an undisputed fight, and I think I'm looking forward to that. I don't know what's going to happen though. That's just Katie Taylor put it out there, but we'll see.
Yeah, they both did. I'm with it.
Yeah, that's a good fight. I don't hate that fight at all.
So here's a historical note. If that happens, this will be the first undisputed champion versus undisputed champion head-to-head fight
Wow.
since 1974, when Carlos Monzon, the reigning middleweight champion, defended his title against Jose Napoles, the undisputed welterweight champion at the time. So there you go.
Mantequilla.
Do you think Serrano made a mistake taking that fight in between? Do you think that kind of screwed things up? Like, I think
No, she wanted to become undisputed featherweight champion. She was in line to have the undisputed versus undisputed. Then she got beat up. She won. And frankly, the moment that it was announced that the May 20th date was there, I thought, there's no way. You need 3 months just for the cut over her eye to heal.
What?
And she's blotchy red on the face. And here she is standing next to Katie Taylor, and she's looking, Katie Taylor is looking, clean and happy and fresh and all that. And it's like, that's the worst advertisement that they could have had for the May 20th date. And I'm not surprised at all. And I'm glad. I'm glad that they're going to wait. Let's have Amanda have time to heal. And Katie, yeah, let's do that.
So I'm going to be a negative Nelly here. And again, hindsight's 2020, but I did not like the fact that she took that fight. I think she should have just waited and took the Katie Taylor fight, because to me, that was the better fight, in my opinion. I understand she wanted undisputed, but I don't know. I just think overall that Katie Taylor fight was a much better, bigger fight. And it made no sense to fight that fight so close to the proposed Katie Taylor fight, because now you jeopardize the payday, right? In my opinion. So I just didn't think it was wise to take that fight, in my opinion. So I was disappointed she took that fight instead of, and because I knew that there was a chance that something could happen in that fight. And even still, if it's too close. We saw what happened with Sergey Kovalev after when he fought Anthony Yarde, and then he fought Canelo so close after that. Like, unless you score like a first or second round knockout, if you go 10 rounds or 12 rounds, whatever, that's still time, miles on the tank, right? So I don't know. That's just my opinion. But thank everybody in the chat. Thank you. Great panel. It was a great show. Lee, I'm sorry I missed you twice. I mean, you're unforgettable. So I apologize for that. But you were hiding down on the bottom there. I'm not used to seeing someone down on the bottom. I'm always used to this optic here, the 6 people. But I blame D-Style for that. But anyways, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night. And
thanks, guys. Good night.
See you next time.
Thanks.